Hello, good afternoon. My name is Tim Choi. I'm responsible for product marketing here at Watchdocs. And first of all, thank you all for attending this session today. It's going to be broken up into two pieces. The first of which we're going to actually have Mike Davis from Savid, who's my co-host for today, to talk about some of the risks that security risks that one should be concerned about when deploying BYOD inside your organization. And the second half of which, then I'm going to talk about what is enterprise Dropbox. It's sort of a commonly brought up topic. I think many of us either use Dropbox ourselves or know of employees that use Dropbox within their companies. And the question then becomes, what is an enterprise Dropbox solution? What are the things you need to be concerned about? What are the features and functionality that you should consider? So along the way, I'll be giving demos. Obviously, we're all product people here, so definitely we'll be showing you some of the cool features and functionalities that are available in the marketplace. So with that, I first want to turn it to Mike, and I'll bring up your presentation.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're going to spend a little bit of time here talking about those risks of what goes wrong when deploying BYOD, what you should be worried about in terms of what the attackers are doing, because I think one of the best defenses is to understand offense, right? So a little bit about me. We're going to talk about, mention some trends and some document and data sharing. And there will be room for questions, right? So if you do have any, you can definitely raise them while I'm talking if you like. You don't have to hold them to the end. A little bit about me. I run Savid Technologies. We're an IT security consulting firm here. We have offices around the US. What I'm most well known for, though, is writing Snort, Nmap, and DSNF, if any of you guys have used those in your IT careers. I wrote those for the Windows platforms. So I no longer support them, so if they're breaking, don't ask me any questions. But I also wrote Hacking Exposed, #1 computer security book in the world, plus another book just focusing on malware and rootkits. Part of that book talked about mobile and how malware is operating on the mobile space as well. And that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. And then if you are interested in some of the other topics that I'm talking about, there's a whole slew of reports that I've written over the past year on mobile security risks at Information Week. There's actually another one coming out here in August, but you can go to informationweek.com, just type in Mike Davis, you'll see all those mobile risks right there. So first thing, we know that mobility is exploding, but I wanted to kind of talk about enterprise mobility. Everybody talks about smartphones, right? It's the iPhones and the Androids that are taking things over. But what we're really seeing in the enterprise is actually tablets that are taking things over, and that's a key distinction. Because the way a person uses a tablet versus using a smartphone is really different. And they're using their tablet for productivity, to share data, to access data, modify documents, et cetera. And so when you look at the growth here, the blue is actually the growth of tablets, and they're expecting this to continue to go up. Matter of fact, Apple had their earnings call this morning. I was listening on CNBC. iPhone, not so good. iPad, they're going through the roof still. And so the commentary from one of the CNBC pundits was, it looks like Apple is a tablet manufacturer now, not a phone manufacturer. So think about that. But here the core issue is that there's so much fragmentation. This is actually the number of versions of Android that are out there. All right, so if you're looking at Android market, and Apple's not getting any better, right? They have different versions of iOS coming out frequently. And without a management and software solution for this fragmentation makes your life basically impossible from an IT perspective. There's over 214 different versions of Android. All right, so encryption does not work the same on Android 4 versus 4.1 versus 2.3 versus 2.1. They're all different. And you have to figure out which one is the device that's your employees bringing in is going to use, and does your solution work for it? So fragmentation is a huge issue. But I'm going to spend most of our time talking about the real risks. We all have tablets here and phones. What do you really should be concerned about? And a lot of people talk about mobility in general, and they want to start at this low-level kind of form in terms of the network and the hardware itself. And there are attacks there, okay? But that's not where a majority of the attacks come from. There are ways to intercept your cell phone signal in the room. Matter of fact, I was in a demo last year where the guy redirected everybody's cell phone signal to his local tower sitting in the conference room. And so he was able to see everybody's data going through his cell tower. So there are ways to do that, but that's not very scalable. Okay, so the majority of the attacks are at the software layer, all right? And they're mostly at the operating system layer, but now as that's getting better, they're moving to the application layer, okay? So when we talk about apps, what do the apps do? They share our data. They access our documents. So that's why this is becoming more of a concern in the BYOD space, because it's the apps like Goodreader and iAnnotate and things like that people use day in and day out to do their jobs. So first, I want to talk a little bit about this app store. Everybody knows the app stores, and they use them every day. Don't they provide security about the applications? And it's a common question I get is, doesn't Apple scan these things, or Google? The answer is no. Okay, Google just announced, it was 3 months ago that they announced the bodyguard, and they're going to have this scanning for the Google Play Store, and yet malware is still getting through like crazy. There's been a single-digit percentage drop. It's been very small, okay? But all the providers, Android, iOS, majority of what they do is they provide signing capabilities. They're signing the application cryptographically so that they can remove it at any point in time. So, for example, when the Droid Dream Trojan came out for Android devices, they were able to remove that from everybody's device in the world by one button because they revoked a certificate of that provider. Very easy. So they all basically provide that capability. Very few have approval. So, for example, iOS, they're only looking at the policy of the application, what it says it does, and the quality of the application is mostly what they're testing for. And for trademark infringement. They'll actually go through the application to make sure you're not using somebody else's trademarks. The best, actually, of all these is Windows. Windows does scan for security, but who here has a Windows phone? A couple people, wow. There's 3 or 4. No, Windows tablet, okay, there you go. So Windows is actually at the forefront of this in terms of a security perspective, but there's just not enough users to see an impact yet. That's the core issue. So there might be with the Surface coming out and things like that. And then there's other providers we don't really talk about, but in the enterprise space like Symbian and Nokia, they have some of their own OSs as well. They're very similar, okay? So we developed a top 10 list with a company called Veracode, who's an application security company. We do a lot of work in BYOD, and we kind of wanted to walk through the top 10 issues. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these here because of time today, but if you, again, like I mentioned, if you go to Information Week, you can find all kinds of juicy details about all 10 of these issues, okay? We're going to focus mostly on the top level, which are the applications that you may use or your employees may use in their day-to-day lives. The bottom half of the top 10 is focused on if you're building applications. Things you shouldn't do, okay? Like you probably shouldn't store the account number and things like that, but amazingly MasterCard did that last year. If you download the MasterCard app for your iPhone or Android, it puts your account number in plain text on the device. Probably not a good idea, right? So there are some kind of stupid things you don't want to do, but we have seen things like logic bombs too, but we're not going to spend too much time on that. We're going to talk about the top stuff. So let's first talk about the number one thing that people don't realize. Pretty much everything on your device is accessible via certain applications. Now, when an application is written and submitted to an app store, it doesn't matter whose it is, a manifest file is sent with that saying, this app is going to access contacts, it's going to access the camera, it's going to access files, etc. How many people ever read that big list of permissions when they install an app? Okay, 3 people. You guys are the paranoid ones, right? Figured as much. Nobody ever reads those things, so, and more importantly, even if they did, they don't care because they want the app. So yeah, okay, you can access my contacts. It's the same reason when you go on Facebook and you gotta, read the Washington Post or something and it says, oh, like us on Facebook, it'll get access to your whole profile, right? So almost all the information on your device, phone or tablet, is pretty much accessible. Most applications have way too many permissions than they need. And you'd be amazed at how many games have been downloaded. Why would a game need access to your contacts, right? Yet they're using that information. There's been many, many games that have been malicious that didn't do anything malicious because they said they were going to take your contacts. You installed the game. They took your contacts, and they sent them off to a spam provider. So the big things that people don't realize, messaging like SMS and email, easy to intercept. Audio and video does get intercepted. We've actually seen Trojans that will turn on the microphone, record video for a second, send it to a server. There's been Trojans that will take snapshots of the screen as well to see what you're doing. Why do I need to intercept your communications with Chase or Bank of America if I can just take a screenshot every 5 seconds of what you're doing on the actual phone? I can see what's going on, right? Call history, browsing history, data files, etc. Though all of this stuff can be taken, and this is the realm of the world that we're moving into. It's less about all this information necessarily, and more about the data itself, these data files. And that's where corporations are getting concerned, is because access to data files. We're going to talk about encryption in a second, so people immediately go, well, it's encrypted. We'll talk about that. So when we're thinking about these type of risks and sending of information, really in a BYOD situation, you're providing in many cases a security solution, whether it's mobile device management or something like that, so that the corporation is secure. But a lot of times the attackers are not only just going after their data, they're going after the people themselves, okay? So this other information, we've actually seen some interesting legal discussions at some of our larger clients talking about, are we telling our end users who are bringing in their devices and we're securing them, are they under the mindset that maybe they can be, their personal lives are going to be secured too, right? And what if their identity gets stolen when we secured their phone and the phone was the vector in which their identity was stolen? Who's liable for that? Because supposedly we told them we were securing the phone. All right, some interesting discussions that have to be talked about. So I'll give you an example of some real world cases of this. There was an app that came out called the SMS Replicator. This was actually a commercial application, a real application. It was used to track your husband or wife when they're cheating on you. What it would do is it would take a copy of every text message they send and send it to somebody else. Legitimate application, 100%. They took it out of the App Store because it did one thing. It didn't show an icon. So you wouldn't even know it was running. So it was very easy to use for malicious purposes. But other Trojans have used that exact same functionality to copy text messages, photos, etc. Okay? In the enterprise world, though, we saw something in the Symbian space. This was a couple years ago, but it goes to show you they haven't updated their software very often. These things still pop up. Symbian had a situation where you can install backup software that was actually malicious. So when it backed up the device, it just copied all the data to the attacker's network. And it was signed by Symbian. So they said, yes, this is a good app. Go ahead and install it. Right? Every single piece of malicious software that's ever been installed on an iPhone or an Android device that was not rooted was approved by Google or Apple. So you got to realize they're not there to protect you right now. Now, one thing that does actually affect everybody's wallet is unauthorized payments. This is how they make their money. All right? They steal your data and they can make money that way, but the fastest way is this. Your phone's sitting on your nightstand at night. It's 2 in the morning, you're sleeping, and all of a sudden that phone is sending out text messages that are charging you $1 a text or making phone calls to, Kazakhstan. All right? Your phone doesn't even know what's going on. The screen doesn't turn on, it's just making a phone call. All right? This is where the money is made. Okay, this is why they're going after mobile phones. The majority of this is this reason. They want to take your phone and convert it into basically a cash machine. Now, the benefit that they've had for the past couple of years is that most phones are still owned by corporations. And if your phone bill at a company is up maybe $10 or $15 more per month, nobody really even notices it. But in a BYOD space, you pay your own phone bill now, and you get a stipend from the company. You're going to notice, right? So they've been converting from just doing this method to actually stealing data and information that they can sell. Now, sadly, your information isn't that valuable. Basically, your entire identity is worth about $4. Actually, there's a network of underground criminals. They use a cloud-based application that they can upload their data in a CSV format about you, and they can pay for the other information they don't know about you that somebody else may have stolen at some other time. So I know all of your information about your Social Security number. Somebody else knows it. I'll pay $1 for your Social Security number. Now I have your full identity. It's a cloud sharing application. Don't we love the cloud? So this is the majority of the time where they're making their money, and this affects all platforms. We've seen it on Windows as well. Now, one thing that people don't realize is that these are computers, so they can exfiltrate data. Everybody sees that little maybe 3G up and down arrow lighting blinking up on their phone or whatnot when data is being transmitted, but you have no way to know what application is transmitting what data. That's a core problem we're seeing right now in the mobile space because usability is so forefront. Have you ever gotten a pop-up when you're going to a site with an SSL certificate that was expired in, say, like a banking app? How would you ever know? In the Windows world or in the PC world, we get the green bars and we have lock icons and all that type of stuff. Generally, don't see those in applications. You don't get error codes when things pop up about, oh, somebody else is man-in-the-middling my phone, right? Or an IP address conflict. Have you ever seen that on a phone? Just don't happen because the usability is so paramount. Well, it's pretty fun when you sit inside an airport lounge and go ahead and set up a Wi-Fi sniffer for man-in-the-middle, which is 2 clicks on Windows. And all of a sudden you have people's phones going through your PC and you're just intercepting their traffic and they don't even know because the programs have not been built to pop up error messages, right? So you got to realize that all this stuff, things like TCP and UDP sockets and all that type of stuff, there's a full-on computer stack inside that device. And so anything that you can do on a PC and a PC malware, they can do in a mobile phone as well. We actually have seen mobile phones be used to serve data too, believe it or not just send data, but actually serve data. There was a case of a botnet that had a mobile phone being used as a command and control server. It was last year. But all this information can be there, and they can also get BlackBerry Messenger data too. Okay, so it's not just the Apple and Android platforms. So here's an example when I talk about a drive-by malware. This is the way this stuff is getting installed. It's not just through the app stores. This was a case, actually this was last month. I took this on my phone. There was a website. If you went to the website, it automatically started downloading a file behind the scenes. Anybody who's used Android knows it doesn't pop up a box with a progress indicator. The only indicator you get is this up here on the left. It's downloading a file in the background. Now this website said, oh, your browser is out of date. if you want to view this website, you need to update your Android browser. So you're like, oh, okay, and it's downloading in the background. It gets complete, you hit the button, you install it. And you actually just installed the rootkit, all right? Pretty simple process. It affected 360,000 people last month. Relatively simple, but they didn't do anything smart here. All I did was convince you to download something and run it, okay? This is how most of the attacks happen if they don't come from the App Store. Now, the other technique that we've seen is UI impersonation. Let me walk you through how a normal person goes and downloads an app. They go to the store, they type in part of the name, it shows up in the list, they click it, they get a list of all these apps that match whatever they typed in, say it's a game name. The one that has the most stars, they click on, they hit install. Because heck, if there's 5 stars, people, this must be the right app, right? What UI impersonation is, it's affected a couple banks, mostly smaller banks, is an attacker takes the real app, we'll pick on Chase for an example, but they take the Chase app, they download it, they decompile it, they recompile it so it looks the same, but it's malicious. They upload it to the App Store. They pay a spam company to go ahead and use a whole bunch of email addresses and give it fake 5-star ratings, so when you hit search, it shows up first. Because the only thing you did was just make sure it had more stars and hit install. Nobody ever reads a description or any of that other stuff. So what happened? A bunch of banks all of a sudden had customers thinking they're using their real apps using a fake app. But it worked. It looked the same. It functioned the same. It still checked their account balances. But it also sent a copy of their credentials to the attackers. So again, this UI focus is another issue that we're having with mobility, is because UIs, again, simple. There's no way for you to verify these things are real or not real. All right. Now, last thing I mentioned about SSL and some things like that, and I talked about how being in a airport lounge, you can intercept things. That is a legitimate risk when you're using Wi-Fi. Not so much on the cell phone network, but Wi-Fi, it's pretty much a legitimate risk. And so a lot of times you can do Wi-Fi man-in-the-middle attacks, and a lot of people set their phones to automatically connect to open network so they always have Wi-Fi access. One of the first things we see organizations do is lock that down. So they'll say, you know what, you can't connect to anything but a Wi-Fi network that we know of, or that you know is secure. You know how many people that pisses off? Everybody that has a phone. And so the first thing they do is they say, security, you can't do that. I want to be able to go to Starbucks and use the AT&T Wi-Fi. Right? And if you don't let me, I'm going to be pretty upset. So they say, okay, you can use any Wi-Fi you want. And then they go ahead and set the button that says just connect to open Wi-Fi. Now, you have data on your device, you're checking email, and that device may all of a sudden start checking email over Wi-Fi because they got close enough to a subway's Wi-Fi. Right? So this is you can do this for fun and profit, so to speak, on your own time. You can download a tool that does this for you on Windows that just literally makes you a man in the middle on Wi-Fi and just sit at it, any place, any park or whatever. You'll just see phones start connecting to you, just randomly. Okay? Now, why is this all happening? This is an example of all the companies that claim they're in social media. You can see there's hundreds and hundreds. And so you can see the consumerization, the want to be social is driving a lot of this BYOD stuff that we're talking about. But I wanted to kind of bring this back and say, okay, let's stop talking about the attackers. It's all bad, and Mike, you've scared me now. What is this really all about? And I'm not here to scare people because there are solutions here. So this is what's driving it, though. You got to remember that they are the ones that are wanting to be productive, usually with their job. They're wanting to be social. They're wanting to do some other things. Okay? So it's all about how does IT get in front of that? Instead of preventing it, how do we get in front of it and enable them to do something in a more secure way? Right? So a couple of things is, this is all boiling down to a concern that most enterprises are dealing with, which is data leakage, which we'll talk about, and Tim will talk about as well, and then also privacy. All right? I want to give you some examples about privacy because in Europe, unlike here, this is more of the concern. They actually care less about data leaking in Europe than they do about privacy information leaking. The US has very weak privacy laws compared to Europe. And in Europe, information about you, like your name, your address, if that stuff gets out, that's a bad, bad breach. All right? So privacy is starting to come and make a play here in the United States, but we're still getting there. So what do we mean by privacy? It means revealing sensitive information about the company or themselves, defamation, it could be reputation damage, there could also be fines for the organization. And I'm going to give you a few examples of what I mean by this. There's one that happened pretty recently. I can't show the picture here because it's a little bit too racy for this conference. But anybody heard of Anonymous, big hacker group that supposedly is killing us all? Yes? Okay, so Anonymous was breaking into the FBI. They were breaking into the Department of Defense. They broke into Stratfor, all these huge companies. How'd they do it? You know, this amazing, unbelievably huge hacking organization. Well, they broke into an organization. One of the head guys in Anonymous posted this picture on Tumblr of his girlfriend having a sign on her that said, You were owned by the cabin crew and informer, and there you go. This was posted on the website that they broke into. It's also posted on Tumblr, okay? Well, this guy, in his infinite wisdom, didn't realize that he took it with his phone. By default, your phone records the GPS coordinates of when the phone was taken and where the photo was taken. So he uploads it on the website. FBI downloads it and says, the GPS coordinates are still in there. That's interesting. So he started combing all the photos that Anonymous had ever kind of posted, anybody who was ever connected to Anonymous, found out this guy had an open Facebook page with some public pictures with the same GPS coordinates. Kind of interesting. So they were able to basically coordinate from this photo the guy who was one of the head guys in the US behind Anonymous. All because the super smart hacker guy didn't realize that his GPS coordinates go in a photo. Okay? Now, Facebook and Twitter remove that data whenever you upload, but Tumblr, all those other services don't. Okay? When you email a photo, it doesn't get removed. So a lot of that information is in there. That's privacy information that's being leaked out. Okay? We've seen cases where companies have been concerned about, where employees are. They post photos of where they're at inside of a building. You take a photo of your friend in his cube, and you post it or email it to somebody. Those location data of where you are is there in that photo, when you took it, things like that. And so you got to realize that once a photo, video, or message is sent by a device out to the public, you can never get it back again. And too many people don't understand that. So we've seen a couple of these cases recently. Microsoft, actually, when they announced the Surface, there was a photo leaked around, and Apple has been a victim of this as well, but there was a photo leaked around of an engineer who was involved in the Surface project, and he had a whiteboard behind him. And they just took a picture of the guy, he's laughing or whatever, and somebody decided, oh, there's interesting stuff in that whiteboard. So they enhanced the quality of the photo, they converted the whiteboard a little bit so they could read it. They found a whole bunch of product data on the Microsoft Surface that wasn't supposed to be released. All because somebody took a photo of something just for fun. So this is where I feel there's going to be a convergence of the data that we're talking about leaking out. There's going to be a convergence of the fact that these devices aren't under IT's control, and it's easy for things like photos and videos to be taken of confidential information inside a business that can just leak out very easily, okay? How many people use their phone to take pictures of the whiteboard after a meeting? Yeah, there you go. How many people just email those to people? Yeah, exactly. We've seen those things get out so many times, it's unbelievable. All right? We were having a conversation about this earlier, just before we started here. And somebody forwards that email about something critical, a piece of paper or a whiteboard photo they took to somebody outside the organization. Next thing you know, a strategy's leaked. Right? So all this is becoming data. We're realizing that these videos, these photos are all data. How do you control that? All right? So a couple things here I'm going to tie up and then let Tim take over here. How do you solve these things, Mike? What's the best approach? When we talk about what we earlier were talking about in terms of mobility, mobile device management solutions and some of the things Tim will talk about are probably the biggest way to reduce risk, the quickest. The second one, the privacy side, though, it's all about user education. All right? You really have to educate the end users, but you don't educate them in terms of, hey, employee, can you go ahead and protect our company data? We'd really appreciate that. Okay, thanks. You got to educate them on how this is affecting their personal lives. That is much more effective. We've been effective in getting rates down into single digits in terms of testing and whatnot when it comes to employees understanding the risk of opening documents, the risk of opening email attachments, of getting phished. We did one organization where 71 out of 100 people opened a phishing email we sent them. Throughout a one-year awareness program, it dropped to 4%. Okay? So awareness does work if you do it right. So a couple things you want to realize. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, they're just malware development platforms. Majority of Facebook, there's so much malicious stuff on there, it's unbelievable. And I know the Facebook security team very well. They have lots of hard work in front of them, but it's difficult, okay? It's a user-generated content community. Instant messaging is growing. We're seeing that become more malware distribution, especially with instant messaging and texting and Skyping all happening really much more than ever before, okay? So instant messaging isn't just an old school technology, it's growing. But this is really just social engineering. They're convincing somebody to do something, okay? Hey, can you send me this information, or can you do something like that? It's all about user education, okay? And it can be very, very effective. So last step I'm going to talk about in data. What do your apps do? Do you really know what the apps on your phone do? All right, and a lot of organizations talk about, well, we can whitelist or blacklist apps. We can also decide, where people can use Wi-Fi, where they can't. We can force them to use our email client on their phone or something like that. But in general, they still don't have control of what the apps on the phone do. It's very hard to implement a whitelist or blacklist program for BYOD because people get upset very, very quickly. Okay? We've seen it be done, but in general, it doesn't work in very many cultures. So you got to think here about data collection, retention, and sharing. What are the apps that people are installing have access to on that device? And this is where I said I talk about encryption, right? Immediately everybody says, well, devices are encrypted now. iPhones are encrypted by default. So are Androids. What do I have to worry about here? Okay? Well, it's kind of true, but it's all up to the app itself in determining if it is encrypted itself. It's opt-in. It's not default encrypted for everything. Yes, the phone is encrypted, but it's encrypted using the PIN code of the phone. So if anybody knows the PIN code, it's decrypted. All right? So that 4-digit PIN, very easy to brute force. Matter of fact, law enforcement have the capability to plug in their car, these are DEA agents who do drug enforcement, they have the ability in their car to plug in an iPhone into a dock. Within 15 minutes, it brute forces the 4-digit PIN, because what drug dealer has more than 4-digit PIN? I can tell you, not very many. And boom, they have access to everything on that phone. Right? So again, very easy to kind of do some of this stuff, and encryption is useless then. This is why some other applications like Goodreader have their own encryption built in, right? Because the encryption of the device isn't enough. So you have to look at really what the apps do, and then what do the apps your users are using do most of the time. So you can collect data from these mobile device management products on what apps are being used the most. You can find out that, oh, they're using Goodreader the most, they're using iAnnotate, or they're using whatever it may be. And you can look at what those apps do and get in front of it and recommend those apps to your users rather than say, don't use anything, use these because we've vetted them, right? So the last things that I think you want to look at here is encryption is opt-in by the developer, like I mentioned, okay? And that means that you don't know really unless you investigate whether the app's doing encryption or not. The second thing is when you open a file in an app, whether it's Android or iPhone, the app may make a copy of that file and you don't know where that copy is saved. So just because you opened it out of your secure email, or your email is using encryption that communicated, or you have an encrypted SD card, it may actually copy it to the local storage temporarily to display it. So that data could still be on the device in plain text without you realizing it. All right? How can you control or guarantee the apps viewing the document are actually the right apps? You should do a vetting process. What we actually recommend is don't recommend a whitelist blacklisting approach, but we recommend a verified apps directory. So do your own company app store and put as many apps as you can verify in there as possible that you know are working properly. And then when the phone goes to an app store and they go to search for Goodreader, it's going to get the Goodreader from your app store, the one you've verified and vetted, not the Goodreader from app store. All right, and you can set that up. Company app stores, I said, aren't enough unless you're analyzing the app. There's some companies that will do that for you automatically. There's a company that just came out in February of this year that's growing like crazy called App Authority. They provide reputation capabilities around applications, so proof. Hundreds of other companies like yours are saying this app is working fine. It's not malicious. And so then you can say, I trust that application. And I mentioned earlier the user's password. If it's 4-digit PIN, very easy to break and brute force. It needs to be stronger than that, but that usually kind of upsets users. And so you have to make a trade-off. Do you upset the user with their phone PIN, or do you use applications or use a solution that doesn't have to require all of that extra work? All right. So I think I'm going to hand it back over here to Tim and talk about some of this stuff. Anybody want to answer questions right now a little bit, or you want to wait till the end? Okay, we'll wait till the end.
Cool. So now that Mike has successfully scared us to death in terms of what's out there in the world, I mean, the immediate question that comes up is, well, what do I do? Do I just stop people from using their own personal mobile devices? Do I prevent someone from using their, working from home? I mean, Mike and I have been in the security profession for 20, 30 years, and too long, way too long. And what we can tell you for a fact is, if you try to block someone from doing their work, they're going to work around you. Right? They're going to find some other way to be able to access documents, access their data at home, on their own device, wherever they are. Because look, what they're trying to do is their work, right? I mean, on one hand, we're on one side of the house, which is, we're custodians, we're protectors of our corporate assets, right? We're responsible for our brand, we're responsible to keep our company safe. On the other hand, our colleagues are just trying to get their work done, right? So in the next this part of the presentation, I'm going to cover some of the common use cases that we see and how organizations are able to enable both a productivity tool for them to access the documents wherever they are, and at the same time have the controls that are necessary within an IT organization. A little bit about who we are. We're about a 5-6-year-old company, enterprise software based out in California. We're really, there's a lot of words up here, but the best way I like to describe it is we're enterprise Dropbox. Right, so We come from a security DNA, but we recognize that employees just want to get their job done and want to access documents. So we provide sync, access, share, and control of documents on any sort of device that you may have, if it's corporate issued or personal acquired. I actually want to start off this part of the segment with a couple of stats. We have a sister company by the name of Palo Alto Networks, successful company, just recently IPO'd, good for them. They ran a survey amongst all of their customers, analyzing network traffic, so they were application firewall. And what they found was that on average, the average organization has about 13 file sync products that are running within their company. In addition to that, 76% of the organizations that surveyed sent traffic to Dropbox, and on an average about 2 gigabytes per month. That's a lot of data that's going to Dropbox, right? And the question immediately then becomes, what's going out there? What's being sort of synchronized into this consumer, file sync product? The bottom, we have a couple other stats. 81% of employees admitted using personal device for work. Understandable. I'm at home, I want to get my work done. I want to be productive. 46% let someone else use that same device, probably a family member, a friend, they're sharing a common PC. And then 66% who use the devices today say that organizations lack a BYOD policy. Hopefully through initiatives like today, like the conferences like this week, that number will sort of change. But then the question then becomes, where's your document going now? Where are your corporate documents? We work with a lot of financial services organizations, right? So you have like fund performance numbers. You have your strategy documents, product design docs. And if you're using a lot of these consumer file sharing products or you're sending it outside your company, the question then becomes, where does it go now? Is it on someone's personal machine? Is it now on a partner's machine? And partner's not just work machine, it's a partner's home machine, right? So the sort of n squared problem becomes worse and worse, right? Now your document has now left your perimeter, left your sort of protected walls because you're trying to do work. But now that document has moved into a personal laptop, your business partner's smartphone. And consumer email service. Like how many of us know someone that has taken an email, right, and tried to read that email on a BlackBerry device? Sorry to pick on BlackBerry. Sorry about that. And forward it off to a iPad because you can view it bigger and better, right? And you send it over through your Gmail account. It happens quite often. Now your work document is down in Gmail. So, and I think on our end, what we are asking for is the control of those documents, right? Like I said, we are the stewards of those documents. We're responsible to protect our corporate assets. We're responsible for our company's brand. And as such, we need to have those same tools to be able to control, to be able to track who's accessing, what's going on with the documents, and where are they going. And Brian talks a lot about this FUIT sort of concept, right? How do we find that resolution between the two sort of opposing teams, right? On one hand, what employees really want, right? They want to sync. They want to have access to these documents on a mobile device, on tablets. Mike talked about this growing number of tablets in the marketplace, on your desktop, on the web, access anywhere. They want to collaborate. They want to be able to take a document, be able to annotate it, be able to share it, be able to manage it wherever they are. And then easy, right? This whole consumerization of IT. The bar has been raised for all of us as IT vendors, in fact, to have a solution that's easy to use. I was just on a product forum, with my dev team today, and we were talking about, we need to even elevate the experience even more because now you have like all these iOS sort of expected look and feel that consumers and all of us users want to have, right? So that bar is much higher now. No more green screen. I want to use my finger to slide, right? On the other hand, what do enterprise want, right? I sort of call it the carrot and stick, but really what we're asking for is tracking and compliance, right? If you're in regulated industries, you have regulations you need to comply with, GLBA, HIPAA, PCI, et cetera, state data breach disclosure laws. Or it could be intellectual property, right? You have sensitive corporate data you need to get protected. So you need to have the data security and the control. You want to have flexibility to be able to deploy however you want. It's not just cloud. It could also be on-prem. You want to have that flexibility to run it however you choose to do so. And then integration in enterprise systems. You have SharePoint, you have Salesforce, you have Autonomy, et cetera. You have all these different products already in place. You want to be able to plug right into that. And so those are sort of the two sort of opposing wars and the two opposing worlds and sort of what each party is asking for. And the way we sort of help you as IT professionals to get some of those controls back, and rest assured, I'll go through the usability part, all right, as I go through the demo in terms of accessing the documents. There are two pieces where we bring. The first is document control. There's a lot of talk about encryption. There's a couple sessions yesterday, for example, yours, we talked about going to the data, right? That core thing that is most valuable, which is your corporate information. And we provide you the document control of who can get access to that document. All right? Locking it down to, is it, who do we have here? I guess it's Alice at customer.com. Can Alice share this document with anyone? Can she share it with someone within her domain? Next question is, what can they do with that document? Right, some of you may be familiar with this within the realm of information rights management or digital rights management and such. We call it simply controls, document control. Right, be able to print, be able to copy paste, be able to edit. And these are advanced features, right, that you want to lock down based on sort of your workflow that you want. And finally, how long can you get access to this document? Do we have a business relationship where it's only 6 months, at which point I need to reassess? I need to expire at that point. Do we have a contract between us, you as my consultant, when I'm sending you, information, or you're my financial auditor, and I only want you to have access to my, my stock filings for that 1 year period. In addition to control, the next thing is visibility. I think one of the interesting things that we've observed is there's so many documents that are created within a company. Most organizations don't know what's been created and where it goes. You're sort of blind. Right? You're blind to what's happening. So what we've actually been able to bring to the market is this tracking capability. To be able to know that Tim, I actually opened up this document on March 2nd at 11:37 p.m. in San Francisco, California on this IP address at this particular location. So you actually can build a lot of interesting, through the tracking, build a lot of business intelligence and security intelligence that wasn't available before. Right? Security intelligence is such as, this product design document was opened up in China. I don't have colleagues in China. How did it get there? Someone trying to break, someone trying to get access to my IP. Or, for example, I have a business proposal, be able to track that out. A call for capital. Actually, one of the things that we work with a lot of hedge funds, and when they do a call for capital, they send all this information out. And then based on who's responded or not responded, the sales team could actually follow up with them. So think of it as like read receipt, tied to that particular important document. So at which point, I'm now going to take a pause because I've been, Mike's been talking about security, I've been talking about controls, so to make it as fun as possible, we're going to talk about the usability aspect that our users want to have. Right? So I'm just going to exit out from this document. You see this is actually a PowerPoint that I have here. You can see here it's actually protected using watchdogs. It's actually limited to view and edit. I can't print, forward, copy, paste, etc. So this is actually encrypted. And keep in mind, this laptop that I have here, hopefully it doesn't disconnect, is actually my personal laptop. This is my own, it's not work issue. This is my own personal machine that I used and I acquired on my own. Right? And how did I get access to this information? So we have, a sync folder, very much like a Dropbox. And every information in here, every document here is encrypted. And so, so you have all of these various workspaces and information in here. Let's see, let me bring up Inbox. Here you go. So Inbox, here's the BriForum, presentation that I was just been sharing with everyone. Right, so I'm syncing now. I'm syncing all of my documents on my, my personal PC. So it looks, for those of you who are Dropbox users, you have now an enterprise Dropbox on your machine. In addition to that, I wanted to sort of shift to the web interfaces. I can also even view the document through the web. So we actually, so one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing, and because we recognize that enterprise workers are all over the place, we actually render the document and present it in a high-fidelity view in the web. So you think of executives that may be on the road, traveling at an airport, and they need to be able to view a legal document. They can view the document without having to download the document nor to install any software at all. Right, so as you recall these were the previous slides that I had shared with everyone. So that's fine and dandy. That's great on the PC world, right? Now sort of solve the need for accessing corporate documents on personal PCs. The question then is, how do I get it on my iPad? So I'm going to disconnect. Oops. Hopefully this comes out quickly. There we go. So this is my Watchdogs app. This is my own personal iPad. I just, my wife bought it for me, so this is my own personal device. And this is the Watchdogs app, and you can see here, here's my presentation again that I've been sharing everyone. Here's all the set of various documents that I've made completely accessible. To Mike's point, all of these documents are individually encrypted and protected and make sure that no other application can get access to it. You have a complete safe environment to be able to continue my presentation. So you can see here, all the various slides. I have a full chart here with like financial, results for the year that I can review while on the road. I'm on a plane. In addition, this is where all the collaboration pieces come in, right? So maybe, for example, I have questions on, why are there all these other sales numbers in here? It's repeated over and over again. So I'm going to make a note here. I'm going to say, I'm going to change it to red, so I need to color code it since it's important. Need to update. Right, so I'm going to do that. And you know what? I'm going to share this annotated version with my colleague, Steve. He's sitting in the back right now. So let's send this to Steve. Hey, Steve. Need to update. Oop, there we go. And I just send it out. Right, so these are tools that, on one hand, our security, our controls provide you the visibility of what's going on, but at the same time are giving you the checkboxes to be able to tell your colleagues to say, you want a Dropbox type solution. You want to access your documents on your iPad, on your personal device. You are now able to do so, but I can still, do my job, right? We don't have to fight anymore. We're both on the same side. Right, so carrying on, and you can see, for example, stock prices. I can see, I present investment options to my customers, and I just want to share with you a couple of use cases, right? So within financial services, for example, Blackstone is one of our large customers. They send all their fund performance information to all the limited partners, and they access it on their iPads and be able to revoke that access to that document whenever they want. Right, be able to lock down, can they print, can they forward it? Because their concern is, the fund performance, which is proprietary information, gets leaked out to Bloomberg. Right, they're concerned it gets leaked out into the media, and they will lose control of some of control that message. We have, for example, Vornado, that's in the real estate business. They sort of they acquire and manage buildings. I think they actually manage a lot of property that are associated with Toys R Us. And their concern is there are documents that are associated with, building debt, ecology, the environment assessments, bid prices from various parties that want to buy the property, and they want to make sure that those documents aren't downloaded onto a PC and leaked and run off. Right? So they have that document control provided by Watchdogs to ensure that that's protected. But at the same time, have that sort of sync sort of experience to make sure that the most up-to-date document is provided to end users. A couple other sort of more interesting ones, entertainment, production scripts. We actually get pulled into a lot of times where there's entertainment, someone's writing movie scripts, and they're concerned about pre-release of the scripts or leaking of the scripts into the public, which obviously could have detrimental effect to the movie and the opening day. Manufacturing, this is a big one also. You can see that's a picture of a shoe there, so you can sort of figure out who that company is. I can't say. Anyways, where their concern is, their shoe designs are getting leaked, right? Their shoe designs are getting leaked into counterfeit, and I can say this, by companies such as Great Wall of China, right? It's a big concern of them. where their shoe design they don't want them to be replicated. In transportation and government, you can read up there, lots of classified documents are being accessed and shared on personal devices, iPads, home computers and such. The last couple slides I want to share with you today are just, sort of thoughts that I have. When you're looking at the market, you're considering, okay, well, I need to have some sort of file sync and sharing. What are the things that are necessary? Don't get me wrong, usability is extremely critical, right? I'm an end user myself, right? So, but at the same time, I'm a security practitioner. Like Mike and I said, we've been in the industry for so long already. So we know what's the right way to do it and what's the wrong way to do it. Our belief is that you have to go straight to the document. Right? The document is really, like I said, the most important asset of the company. Right? That's where all of the things are. Right? So protect the data, encrypt the data, ensure that you control it wherever you go, and be able to dynamically change the permissions on it, even after it's been sent out. Because let's be realistic. I share a document with Mike today. God forbid he and I have a falling out. Right? I need to be able to say, I turn it off. It's just part and parcel of how we do business every day, right? I mean, if I sort of have a static control, static protection, then I have less flexibility. You need that flexibility. Visibility, that's the other thing that's interesting, right? Before you were blind, but now you can see, right? As IT organizations, we actually, I think Splunk, has demonstrated that, data is valuable. Visibility in terms of what's going on is valuable. And if you have visibility in terms of the documents of who has access, where did it go, what kind of devices it's stored on, you can actually then have better business responses and security responses, right? You can actually go to your line of business and say, hey, I can give you data that allow you to make better business decisions. You can go back to your staff and say, hey, I can better plan for what kind of devices I need to account for, or what sort of security response, or your legal team to be able to say, there was a breach, but it's okay because it's encrypted. I don't need to, you don't need to send out a data breach disclosure. Right? So there are all these visibility that gives you better decision points. Operationally, my personal feel is you want to find someone that's flexible in terms of how you want to deploy the solution. There's a lot of talk of cloud. Don't get me wrong, I love the cloud. But I think there are organizations in here, and maybe you don't want to admit it, that are still looking for an on-prem solution. You still want to put something in-house, but be able to evolve that over time into the cloud based on operational security needs. And we're very pragmatic about it. Cloud's not for everyone. On-prem's not for everyone. So we've actually taken the effort to sort of build both, right? So, but you look for a vendor look for someone that can help you fit that operational security requirement. The flexible user viewing option, I think that's really important. I've worked on so many devices that, I'll be very frustrated if I cannot view the document on one of those devices. I would completely useless. I wouldn't be able to do work, right? And I'll get frustrated. So, supporting PC, supporting mobile devices on the web, and finding a solution that can present the document in the highest resolution and format, right? Is very important. Flexible collaboration options, being able to collaborate securely, annotate, highlight, things like that, to be able to share the documents with various parties. And then lastly, integration. Look at one of the things that we find a lot of times is plugging into a back-end process where documents are being generated and being shared outside. So with that, here's a little corporate overview. I'm not going to go into that. You can sort of see there are lots of pictures and words. But wanted to thank you. This is my last slide. I wanted to thank you all for listening in to Mike and myself on this session today, and wanted to open up for questions. Yes? Steve over there. Yes.
Okay. Let's say you forward it to somebody that wasn't part of the company.
Yes.
Somebody outside the company. So when they go into their email and they see that, is it a link, I'm guessing?
Yeah. So what we do is we present. I'm sort of opening it to product. I hope it's okay. So you do get an email with notification that you've received annotated documents or a document. It's a link inside of it. You would then click on the link and then be presented with either downloading the document, viewing on the iPad if you were on the iPad. If you're on an iPad, it would just open up within the application. We have an iOS app, as you saw. Yeah, it will go through the app, and then it'll just render itself within the web interface. So it'll just automatically, and that's the one thing that we've actually taken time on is to know that to present the right format based on what device you're at, right? So actually, like, having that intelligence to say, okay, you're viewing from a web browser, I'm going to give you the optimized web experience. Oh, you're viewing from an iPad, I'm going to give you the optimized iPad experience. Because, they're different form factors, right? I mean, my 15-inch Samsung is different from my iPad size and completely different operating system. So we've actually taken the effort to invest in that. Thank you. Yes? So I can answer it in two different ways. I can answer it in terms of what the product is, and I'll answer how people sort of deploy it over time. So at minimum, it's pretty much, well, at maximum, I guess, depending on how you look at it, like any document can be protected, right? So we have those APIs that you can send a document up and then be able to protect it and send it back and then move things around. So we have, like I said, Blackstone, they have this document generation process where they're churning out the fund reports and they're sending it over web services, like RESTful APIs into our server, and then we're doing the conversion, we're applying the security, we send back the document or we send back a link, and then they put it back into wherever they want, right? Maybe a website, maybe some other like iOS application that they have built. Right? So that's sort of one way to look at the problem. My sort of feeling is it really depends on, from a production implementation perspective, really focus on the use cases that you're looking to solve. Oftentimes it's, I need to create a deal room, I need to create a mergers and acquisition room to be able to collaborate and share documents outside, or I need to solve my need for, financial auditors to access my document from SharePoint. So focus on that and slowly grow from there, right? I mean, I think, you'll have the users will understand how to use it, and it'll just be a more elegant growth path. But at maximum, anything can be protected.
I'm just thinking when, at least in my organization, at the time, and I know that's protocol, we don't know what documents they're going to use, right? Like they just sort of, especially people that just 100% outside of organization because that's what they're supposed to be doing. They want to say, I want to be able to get document and see why and see, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Before they can access it, we have to do, like this new product, we have to encrypt it.
Oh no, all the encryption, all the security just happens in the background. So the way I like to present it is when your colleague says, "Hey, I need to access my documents," I like the Dropbox experience. Essentially, what you would then say, "Hey, we have this web-based tool, this Windows file system tool that I can just provide you. Just drop documents in there and then go home and open up on the other side." There's no change in terms of his or her expectation. You're just sort of sitting in the background and going like, "Okay, my job's done," right? And then the software sort of handles it all.
And the last question is, once the user moves that document, is the document completely moved or part of it still resides on, let's say, local servers?
Yeah. So there is a file within the server, which gives it the ability to do all the conversions. So if you recall, there's that conversion you asked about, the viewing on various different devices. So the trick that we do is there's a document on the server, and actually there are converted replicas, where it then gets sent to the respective device.
So if someone then opens it on their iPad, for example, adds annotations,
Yeah.
is that then saved back version the way that
Mhm.
like Dropbox does?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of embarrassing, but a lot of things are pretty standard. So we just. Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh.
So one scenario that we have with the iPads and documents
So, ah, I guess I'll take that on there. So, from our perspective, because of the sensitive nature of the documents we often deal with, our belief is that there needs to be a trusted community of applications that respect the controls that are set associated with the doc. We're in the works with some partnerships that are associated with that. I can't say too much beyond that, sorry. But it's definitely something that is highly important to us. But what we want to ensure is that no one can just take out a document, open it, and then it's lost. Then I guess the question is, what's the point? Yeah. So the other application will actually sort of respect the security settings associated with watchdogs. So we actually have some partnerships that I'm sort of revealing a little bit here, but we're definitely in works on that.
So instead of being able to edit the document within your container?
You can move it into another trusted third-party app and then edit it and then move it back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what if the other thing is, a lot of those third-party apps have, the ability then to add the Dropbox or?
No.
So it'll block.
So yes. So we're working with partners that will adhere to, once it's saved back to us. You're putting me in front of these people here. It's definitely within a year. Yeah. Yep. Sorry.
Okay. Was-
Oh.
There's a question over here too, I think, as well.
Does it handle and manage any and all that type of other one?
So right now we have optimized a solution for Office and PDF documents. That said, there are next set of documents that we're going to be looking to also incorporate the same technologies into. We're looking at areas like manufacturing, for example, CAD and things. But you know what we've observed is so it's Office, PDF, and image files. I apologize. Those are three sort of buckets, and then the next set will be very vertical, specialized documents that we're going to be investing into. Yes.
So the example that you provided where you emailed it to Steve,
Mm-hmm.
and if Steve emails that out to another individual that shouldn't have received that document,
They would not be able to open it.
they would not be able to.
They would not be able to open it. They can request. Now, here's the little feature that we've built in is someone can request, and then the request comes back to me, and I can either approve or deny. So there is a feedback loop that's built into the product to ensure usability of those documents. So like if Steve were to forward it to Mike, and Mike was not approved previously, Mike can then say, he'll be presented with a push button to request permission. I'll receive the notification that he requested, and I will approve or deny him.
Okay, so Watchdocs actually provides the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not really a local complement.
Actually, it is. I apologize. It is to your question on your. I sort of turned it off. On your local PC, for example, this PowerPoint looks like a PowerPoint file. If we open it, it'll open it within PowerPoint. And we have inserted like helper tools or sort of like helper bars along the way to be able to request for information. So all these usability things that we've invested on. We can, if you're interested, we can definitely dive more in details on that. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, I think you had a question. Go ahead.
Kind of expound on what he was saying, and
Sure.
the scenario that you used with Mike earlier. You and Mike have a tip, he gets fired, what have you. He had access to this document when he leaves. When he goes to open the document right there, does it phone home?
Yeah.
He's offline.
There's a phone home.
Still need that.
So there's a timed phone home that always happens, whereby we check to make sure that his license is still valid. And obviously, when he phones home, he's been removed, so we'll say no.
He's offline, he just flips off a 3D card in his iPad, he's got that document.
Yeah, if he hits that time, if he hits the maximum offline period, he won't be able to access the document. He'll say you need to be reconnected back on. Yeah, exactly. There's a time off, and then you'll have to reconnect to be able to re-enable the license.
And the storage is internal to our company, it doesn't go out into the cloud.
So we have multiple deployment options. You can run it on-prem, you can run it in the cloud, you can run it in private cloud or public cloud. We have all instances. Like I said, we're not religious about one way or the other. Well, so lots of questions. Some questions from Mike. I feel kind of bad. He's been standing here the whole time.
Everybody's too afraid to ask me, I guess.
Well, actually, I'm curious about one thing.
Sure.
You mentioned people who actually read the lists of what permissions apps are asking
Mhm.
for, and I am one of those people.
Good for you.
One of the
you basically, on your actual device, you can't very easily. So I'd have to walk you through the steps, but you can't very easily. Again, that's part of the usability issue. The more and more better usability, the less and less things that we show people, and we put our trust more and more in Apple. So, any other questions?
Any other questions? Sure.
What's the latest version of Redmap for Windows?
When is it, or what is it?
What is it?
6 is out, so it came out last month.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and it features a whole bunch of other scripting stuff too.
Cool. Anything else? Well, thank you very much, everyone. I hope this session was informative. Thank you, Mike, for joining me today. If you're interested to learn more, we're in the exhibition hall. Feel free to check us out. And we'll be here for a little bit extra. Thank you.